You do it.
I don't.
It's muted.
He's in France.
It's already for the.
Really?
Put their hands up already.
Call the meeting to order.
I'd like to approve the minutes.
Yeah.
Condemned it.
Some of it.
I
She didn't send.
I didn't send them to you on
Let's hold off
Thursday.
until the next meeting.
Oh, you didn't send it, did you? I think you sent the bill.
Bill, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
How is it?
Before we start the meeting tonight, I would just like to recognize the new member, Jake Kraus, who's joined the board. I believe he'll be a good addition to the board. And thank you for taking the time to inject yourself into the town politics. And we look forward to having you aboard.
Thanks, Bill. Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome
Congrats,
aboard,
Jay.
Jay.
Hey, board, Jake.
There you go.
Go fishing too? All right, we'll talk about that.
We have a motion on the board.
You want me to?
You go ahead. You're running this meeting, Dave.
Thanks a lot. Lucky me. All right, so we're gonna open up the continuation of the public hearing for 23 Cape Road.
I'll give you before, come on up, but I think we're getting closer to, getting all the peer reviews done. We've continued this quite a bit, but after they do their presentation, I have Svenji, this is our acoustical engineer, and if you remember, there were some questions from the audience that they wanted to ask him. He sent it to you maybe a month ago, his answers, but now he's ready to discuss them. So I'm gonna suggest you to have a discussion, and maybe the public wants to ask him some questions.
Oh, I know, too.
And I will tell you, I just received at 5:55, and our traffic response to their latest review. And we posted it as soon as we got it. You haven't seen it. I sent it to you, but you don't have your laptops with you. So that's gonna have to be down the, maybe at the next meeting or.
What was the outcome of the?
He was pleased with it. He had, one recommendation that I know I'm glad Bill's on here because I know it was something Bill wanted. He wanted, a condition, and I don't have it up right now, but essentially that once they sign a tenant and they know a tenant, they'll come in. If the exceeds 25% of their projections, then we'll have to do another traffic review, something to like that. Don't quote me. I don't have it in front of me.
Okay, well,
And that's,
fine.
it is online. I just put it on.
Good to go.
Damon.
Yes.
Yeah, if I could just concur with Jack on that. And when a decision's prepared, there's several conditions that we spoke about along the way that will be included in any decision that's handed down. But there's going to be criteria that ongoing monitoring that will take place depending upon the use that is allowed.
Once they figure out the use.
Correct.
You done? You guys go ahead.
Good to go. Okay. All right. Well, thank you. Not sure if this is on or not, but my name is Connor Downey for the public record with the applicant Blue Water Property Group LLC. We're in front of you to continue the public hearing for the project at 23 Cape Road. Tonight, we're hoping to cover acoustics. There was a item at the last meeting that came up regarding zoning setbacks and also traffic. As Jack mentioned, There were a couple minor items, questions, comments regarding the acoustic study that we represented at the last meeting. I believe the peer reviewer is on to cover those. Our sound engineer is on as well in case anything else comes up that we need to discuss. Also at the last meeting, concern was raised regarding the buffer distances where non-residential districts abut a residential district, which is a topic we then spent a great deal of time researching. Our council provided an opinion letter on the issue to the town planning board and to the town council on April 25th. And we received a letter back from the town council on May 23rd that was generally in agreement with our findings. Our attorney, Kelly Jordan Price from Hinckley Allen is here tonight if you would like an overview on the conclusions of what we found. And this actually resulted in a slight change to our plan set, specifically as it relates to stormwater discharge. There was some riprap back to the west of the site that we had proposed. It was within that 100-foot buffer area, so we had to pull that back. So we've provided updated plans that just show that one minor tweak.
So out of the buffer,
We're out of that buffer now.
out of that
Yep.
area of the buffer.
Yep. Out of the whole 100-foot buffer on that western side. Yep. And then in regards to traffic, there were a number of follow-up items from the initial planning board meeting where we comprehensively presented our traffic impact assessment. Needed to work through a lot of them, but as Jack also mentioned, we got a response to MDM, I think it was a week or so ago, and they just sent their response back to that, less than an hour ago. One of the main items that Sean will represent tonight, we were able to work with the owner of the parcel at 143 Cape Road, right on the southeastern corner of the Hartford and Cape intersection, in order to control about 900 square feet of land to improve that intersection, make it so that trucks can make that turn safely. They don't jam up the intersection. And we can talk a bit more about it, but once these are permitted and then completed, we think they will substantially improve the functionality and safety of that intersection. So we'll talk a bit more when we get to traffic, but I will pause there, see if there's any questions, concerns.
Bill,
It's, why don't we step through everything, all the answers to the questions that we had at the last meeting? I know there was the acoustic question. You just explained the traffic. I'm sure you're gonna do a show and tell on what that traffic will present, the change. Just sort of walk through any outstanding questions. I do know, I did read, read council's clarification on the setbacks. And so that was a major hurdle in my mind. Obviously, anytime we have an application presented, we want it to meet zoning. And I will let your counsel explain, what went on between her and our own legal town council.
Kelly Jordan Price from the law firm of Hinckley Allen and Snyder, 28 State Street in Boston. So the issue that I understand arose at the last hearing concerned a use regulation and its potential applicability to the north side of this parcel. So the use regulation is set forth in section 3.01 of the bylaw, and this concerns the 125 Hartford Avenue parcel that's directly to the north of the project site and is zoned residential. So just to be clear, our property meets all dimensional requirements. This concerns a use regulation. And this use regulation concerns whenever a non-residential district abuts a residential district for a single or two family dwelling. That's the key phrase here, for a single or two family dwelling, 100-foot buffer from the lot lines and a 200-foot buffer from any residential dwelling shall be maintained. That's what the bylaw provides. Given the phrase, the use of single or two family dwelling in that bylaw and the fact that it's a use regulation, it only applies if there's a single or two family dwelling on the abutting residential property. And it's the only way the bylaw can reasonably be construed, because there's a tenet of bylaw construction that says no phrase or provision in a bylaw is to be superfluous. Every word has to have meaning. And the only way you can give that phrase meaning is if there has to be a single or two family construction on the abutting residential property. Otherwise, that phrase would be superfluous or meaningless, because every residential district in the town of Mendon allows for single and two family residents. So we raised this issue in a letter that we submitted to the planning board. Town council, I understand, reviewed our letter and concurred with our interpretation of the bylaw. And there's just a few other things that are kind of unique about this property that further confirm the fact that this is not there's not going to be a single or two family home constructed on the property. There's an agricultural restriction on the property. That's a recorded covenant on the property that specifically prohibits the use of any kind of habitation dwelling and restricts the use to agriculture. So this particular property has that covenant on it, even separate and aside from what the bylaw says. And then there's also a Chapter 61A license on the property, which is a license for agricultural use and it has certain penalties. If the homeowner were ever going to abandon that use or try to change it, the town of Mendon would have a right of first refusal, and there would be certain other monetary implications. So the reality, and then on top of this whole thing, the property is in a flight path to the airport, and there's federal aviation restrictions that further restrict the ability of this property to ever have a home on it. So it's our position, and again, I understand that town council has concurred with us, that the bylaw interpretation is that use, that buffering restriction would only apply if there was a single or two family house on the 125 Hartford Avenue property, and there is not. So it's our position that we fully comply with the bylaw with respect to the buffer area to the north of the property.
Thank you. Do you have anything else?
If I understand correctly, and now you've resolved the buffer that was questioned on the westerly side of the property?
That's correct. Do you want to address that?
Sure. Yeah. Bill, that was just what I was mentioning in pulling back that riprap, which was in that 100-foot buffer. Now there's no disturbance within that 100-foot buffer on the west. So we are abiding by the 100-foot buffer on the west side of the site.
Conservation.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right, then I guess it's on to either traffic or any other outstanding items?
Yeah, acoustic, Bill.
The acoustic. Why don't we move to the acoustic first?
I don't know who
Oh,
got the information on the acoustic.
I can, Chris, can you chime in? Are you there?
I'm here.
Hey, Chris, how are you?
Hello, everyone.
I had, again, to recall at the last hearing, I think it was the last hearing, Chris had already resubmitted his second report saying that he concurred with the findings, that he didn't find any issues. And there were three questions that came up that I forwarded to Chris, and then I'll have him outline it. One was there was concern about the lack of a wraparound of the acoustic wall, and how it will affect Edward Drive. There was a question about the Christian, the church, or the school rather, Christian school.
Church, yes.
And then there was a concern from a gentleman who lives on Bates Road about echoing, bouncing off the road, coming to Bates Road. So there were the three things I asked Chris to take a second look at. How's that?
That's a good introduction, Jack. Thank you. Yeah, I'm happy to answer those questions. So I did look at those three issues, and with regard to the homes along Edward Road, south of the warehouse where the noise, and why was the noise wall not extended farther to the east? Well, the wall's been really recommended primarily to reduce noise from activity at the loading bays that are west of the warehouse, and mainly to benefit those closer homes that are to the west along Talbot Farm Drive. That's the primary purpose of it. But they did propose to wrap it around at the southern end and to the east, basically to block the sound from those loading bays from traveling to the homes that are both along Talbot Farm Drive and also Edward Road. And if you look at the report, let's see which graphic is it on the report. I can tell you if you want to look it up. 1 second. Well, anyway, we can get there if we need to. The other thing about the property is that it's so mainly the issue was the noise from the loading bays was really the purpose of the barrier, and so extending the wall further to the east would not really further block any of the sound from the loading bays because the barrier overlaps with the end of the warehouse. The projected sound levels from the truck traffic that happens to be on that driveway south of the building are not high enough, not sufficiently high at the Edward Road homes to really require the noise wall to be extended all the way along that driveway. It's mainly there for the loading bays. So that's the answer on that question. With regard to the homes that are on, or with regard to the Christian church and academy, that was addressed in the noise study. They didn't name it, and I think they probably should have, but they didn't name it. They called it a private school, and it's Site G. So if you look at the graphics in the study, you can see that it is listed as Site G on that in that report, and it is addressed, and it shows that there won't be serious impact at that property. And I guess the last question was a homeowner on Bates Road asked if the noise would echo off the wall toward the neighborhood. I'm not exactly sure where on Bates Road is, but one thing to keep in mind is that there's a very tall warehouse that is between the wall and certain parts of Bates Road for sure. The wall is fairly low, 12 feet high. The warehouse is much higher. So a small amount of sound that would reflect off a low wall like that would be blocked by the tall building and therefore reduced tremendously or substantially and not be an issue. And certain parts of Bates Road farther to the south might miss any reflection off of the off the wall over the top of the warehouse, but there is still that wall that would block the sound from any reflections, because the reflection would have to come off a lower part of the wall opposite. So in any case, we have a noise wall or a warehouse to block the reflected sound, and I don't think that there's any concern about a substantial amount of sound from reflection. So I think the questions are well put, but I don't believe that there's a concern relative to any of those questions.
Chris, regarding Site G, and I read the report, and it appears that the findings of the sound study, they're quite low at Site G, other than the normal traffic of the trucks driving in, which is equal to the trucks driving down 140.
Right.
So I think that's pretty much a common noise. So, but I did see on that report that relatively low amount of noise impact at G.
Yes, yes, and that's consistent with what I thought as well. Relatively small impact, 32 dBA is projected from HVAC systems, and so therefore, largely, I don't think it will be audible. Occasional truck pass-bys on the driveway, sure, but again, consistent with kind of the same kind of sound from the primary road. So yes, I agree.
Thank you. Any questions from board members? Do you have any input?
On that note.
No, okay. Any questions from the audience? It's,
Maria Fackner, 14 Edward Road. The sound barrier that I asked about, to see if it could be extended along the south side. My reason for asking that question was because I felt the noise would hit the sound barrier, come around the corner and wrap around and come out to Edward. Does that make sense?
I don't think we need to be concerned about those reflections. They're generally very minimal. The height of the wall and the nature of the overlap that's been provided, I don't think that we need to be concerned about significant amount of sound reflecting back and forth. Every time the sound reflects, it loses a fair amount of energy, and it would need to reflect a few times in order to get around that barrier, because it overlaps a fair amount with the building. So I think you'll be fine.
thank you. Follow-up question from the
Just
same.
a follow-up question. I'm sorry.
Go ahead, you're fine.
Did I hear you correctly say that we would be able to hear the trucks going up the hill, up the drive, around the building from Edward Road?
On a quiet night, I believe that, yes, some of that will be audible. Yes, I do.
Okay, that is something I cannot hear now from 140. Thank you.
I understand that. Yes.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Yes, Christine, 14 Talbot Farm Drive. So to Christopher, would your findings, if they had operations in the evening, where any vehicle that goes circles the building, by the base trucks, if they have nighttime operations, would you still feel confident about the sound wall mitigating the noise to the residents on Talbot Farm Drive? Because right now at night, we can all tell you there is no noise. And we do hear, there's a lot that's rented out on 23 Gate now. We hear their vehicles reversing in the daytime with windows closed. And it's different ones, there's louder reverse backup alarms, quieter ones, but we hear all of them. So if you have anything operating at the bays at night, for sure we're going to hear it. So how do you respond to that?
Well, I do think that occasional events will be audible. It's true. The primary objective of the study was to show that the noise levels from the facility would comply with the Mass DEP noise requirements, and they are rather strict. And that's one of the reasons that the noise wall is proposed in the first place, so that the sound from the loading bays will be reduced and kept below levels that might, cause a violation of the Mass DEP noise policy. But the policy does allow for a modest increase in sound levels. It prevents substantial increases in sound, which is what is the primary objective of the noise regulation. But it does permit modest increases, as would be heard in the residence. So some things will be heard from time to time. It's not going to be completely silent. But I think certainly, given the efforts that the developer has used to, add noise abatement with the walls, and they're expecting the number of events at night to be quite low. The numbers I was seeing in the report were, maybe a couple of trucks per hour, that kind of thing. So we're not expecting a lot of noise. at night. Occasional events could be audible, particularly with windows open. I think if windows are closed, you're unlikely to hear much at night, for example.
Thank you.
So, they don't have a tenant yet, and I understand they probably come to the planning board again to approve one, but
Yes.
if this does end up being a last mile destination or any type of other operation that allows nighttime parties, I mean, I would challenge your zoning bylaws in regards to delineation districts. Because at that point, I would say you don't have an adequate buffer between residential and the business district.
At this time, I don't think the planning board would entertain a last mile operation. A concern there would be more of a traffic issue than a sound issue. So I don't think that would be something, I mean, we'd have to see everything, and once again, we'd have peer reviews done, but I do not believe that our intention is to, at this point, unless someone could show us that it wouldn't be detrimental to the community, that we'd look at a last mile operation.
All right, thanks, Bill. Jack?
I'm just gonna suggest, we haven't talked about this, but if you get to a positive decision, that we have a condition similar to traffic for noise. In other words, if the new or the next tenant or whatever, that particular business varies from what they've given us for the noise analysis, they'll have to do it all over again, and we're gonna have to figure that out.
Thank you.
Okay, we're happy to include a condition that requires some post-occupancy sound monitoring to show that it complies with kind of the assumptions we've set forth as part of the approval. We've done that in the past, so.
At this point, we don't know if it's gonna be a daytime operation only. We don't have, you don't have any idea who's gonna be there. So
But my point is to.
that's what I'm getting at.
Help. There's a woman, I forget your name, sorry, I met her. You know, if it became a nighttime operation all of a sudden, that's a whole different animal. Maybe not for traffic so much, but now we're into a
What
whole.
they were already proposing is some sort of nighttime, just in case. So it might not happen that way, but when they do come in for a site plan review, I mean, for the
Use.
for the use, then we'll all address it again.
But traffic does affect sound, because if you increase the truck traffic,
I was just thinking out loud that nighttime might be better for traffic. Ignore what I said.
Okay, any other questions?
South 5 Joseph Road. So what are you gonna do when there's a heavy north wind? And that's gonna blow that sound right down.
We can't, I don't think we can go on the weather. I think we were going by what the Mass DEP Mass DOT regulations are. And
So, but essentially, I think essentially what the reviews are saying is that people that live in the neighborhoods should essentially become desensitized to the sound. And so why should that occur?
I don't think.
Let's see what Chris has to say.
Well, I have one thing to point out, I think, is that the noise study used an international standard sound propagation mathematics, or a sound propagation model that's published by the International Standards Organization. It's ISO 9613. And that's used really worldwide for predicting noise in communities where noise effects could be, quite noticeable. And so the model incorporates a assumed downwind condition in all directions, or a temperature inversion type condition in all directions. So it's the so-called favorable atmosphere to sound propagation in order to protect really communities from, excessive sound from facilities. And I think because that standard was used, I mean, we all use it as acoustical consultants. We all use that model on a regular basis because we know it's a safe one for predicting noise from the activity on site. In a neutral atmosphere or in a temperature lapse situation or an upwind situation, the sound levels will be considerably lower than are shown in this report. So it's a downwind condition for all the sound levels that are shown in the report. I just thought it would be worth mentioning that.
Thank you. Any other questions? Bill, you got anything to add?
No, I think he clarified. I'd just like to reinforce the fact that, our peer reviewers are representing us. They're doing the best they can to make sure these, everything that's happening meets, number one, our bylaws, and the conditions meet regulatory guidelines. That's what we've asked them to do, and these people represent us. They're not working for the applicant. They're working for us.
I think the study was well done overall.
Thank you.
We have traffic.
You have anything on traffic?
We have a couple slides that I was going to present.
Okay.
And then Sean will give a little presentation.
Okay.
Well, good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. For the record, Sean Kelly with Chapel Engineering. On behalf of the project team, thank you again for having us before you tonight. What I'd like to do, if it pleases the board, is just take a few minutes to walk you through the responses that we've issued to the comments that were put out by your consultant, MDM. It spends a little bit of time on the Hartford Avenue Cape Road intersection, which we know is a critical issue. But if that makes sense, I'll just kind of walk through them point by point. Skip ahead, Connor. So really the peer review distilled down to really, I think it was 6 primary issues, and I'll walk through each one point by point. I'll try not to take too much time, but the first one dealt with the study area. Quite frankly, this really was more of a response to comments and concerns that we heard from residents that spoke at the first hearing where we did traffic. You may recall that our initial study area looked at Cape Road, at Hartford Avenue, at Witten Street, and at Bellingham Street, those 3 intersections along the corridor. There was concern raised that we didn't look at Bates Street, which is it's an important road that's in close proximity to the site. I think the comment was prudent, and we did go out there and added that to our study area. So we did counts, we looked at the crash history, we looked at our impact. Quite frankly, the crash rate out there is below the state average. The operations today works fairly well, and our impact there really is about 5 trips an hour. So in terms of impacted delays and levels of service, there really it's less than 1 second. So we did take that into account, and again, we probably should have had it in the initial study, but we did take a look at it, and again, there's no safety issues, and in terms of our impact, it's very minor. There was a comment raised about the site distance analysis. We did our analysis in accordance with all AASHTO requirements, ensuring we provide the necessary site distances to provide safe access to and from the site. There was a comment raised that we didn't look at the desirable, not required, but the desirable site distance for larger trucks in terms of them navigating and pulling out of intersections. And so we went out there and measured it again. This section of Cape Road where we pull out it's really straight as an arrow. I mean, you can see all the way to the stoplight looking north and past Bates looking south. So we remeasured those site distances, and again, we well exceed the requirements even for the larger truck vehicles. Trip distribution, there was just some question about giving some backup data, looking at some US Census data. We did go through it. It did result in some minor shifting of cars versus what we initially projected. But again, we're talking about, 2 or 3 cars to any approach per hour. Didn't have any notable impact to the findings, but we did go through and provide that information they requested. There was a comment that a request that we commit to doing a monitoring study. I know we've talked about it a little bit tonight. And basically, we've made a commitment that when this building gets to 85% occupancy, we will go out and do counts, both daily counts to see how many cars come and go and trucks come and go on a given day, and then also during the peak hours, which are your weekday morning and evening, the commuter hours, to ensure that what we projected, is in line with what's actually happening out there. And should those volumes be off by, we've recommended 25%, then we would take a look and see if there's a need to do any additional study or any additional measures, such as tweaking the timing again at Cape Road in Hartford. 25%, we thought that was a safe number because the peak hour generation for this project is about 35 trips. That would ensure that our generation is less than 10 trips off. So when you factor the multiple routes to the site, we thought that if it were within 9 trips, that the results are going to be adequate and they'll be reliable. There was some comments raised about the intersection of Cape Road and Witten, and whether it can accommodate the truck traffic and what have you. Two things on that. We have looked at all the templates, and it's a very wide road, large radii. Certainly today the geometry can accommodate trucks, but we've also made a commitment in our discussions with Mass DOT that we're going to file for a highway access permit. And this is really more of a procedural thing. Quite frankly, there's nothing on the record for Witten Street at the state level, so they don't even have a permit granted for that corridor. So we agreed that as part of this project, we would apply for the permit that doesn't seem to exist. And to the extent that anything needs to get done to bring that intersection up to current code, including pavement markings, signage, center lines, things of that nature, we'll implement that. And again, it'll go through a whole 3-step review process with DOT where they're going to have to sign off on that as well. And I think really the biggest focus we've had, and it was an issue that Jack brought up during our initial meetings. We've had a couple meetings with DOT now, both with and without the town, is the intersection of Hartford Avenue and Cape Road. If we slide it forward one. So our impact here from a capacity standpoint, again, isn't very large in terms of additional traffic. But the issue with this intersection is how the geometry has changed. And I'm going to kind of give a little bit of I guess I'll call it a history lesson, but this is the intersection back in 2018. And as you can see, the section of, this isn't going to work on there, but the section of Hartford Avenue east of the intersection had 2 receiving lanes. So if you're coming eastbound on Hartford Avenue, you can see west of the intersection, there were 2 through lanes where you could make a left from the inside lane or right from the outside lane. And then the 2 lanes on the opposite side picked up those 2 lanes of traffic as they travel through. And that was a benefit for truck traffic because it allowed trucks that were turning either southbound from South Main or northbound from Cape Road to really utilize both of those lanes to make that turn, which gave them, 20 to 25 feet of receiving lane. Let's give up one more. The state conducted what's known as a road safety audit, where they looked at measures to improve operations and safety at this location. And sometime around 2019, they implemented these changes here. And as you can see on the eastern side of the intersection, kind of in front of the gas station and Dunkin' Donuts, they modified the 2-lane approach to a 3-lane. So now there's a left, a through, and a right when you're heading westbound. The unintended consequence of that is that it shrunk that receiving area down to 1 lane. And quite frankly, there really is no right of way out there. The sidewalk on one side of the street's at the right of way. The sidewalk on the other side is at the right of way. So you can move paint around, but there's no way to meaningful do any improvements unless you did a land taking. And based on our discussions with the state, there's nothing in the pipeline for that anytime in the near future. Go one more, Connor. So recognizing that it was causing issues, they did an interim measure, or so I guess it's a permanent measure, where they took that left turn lane stop bar and they pulled it back 20 feet. And what that did is it allowed a little bit more maneuverability, where trucks now making those turns could use that area in front of the lane to make a hard turn. But it certainly isn't ideal. And what it really requires is that if you're coming northbound on Cape Road from the site, trucks that want to make that right-hand turn they're really turning from the left turn lane. They're swinging really wide, getting into the intersection and making that turn back. So they're occupying a lane they're not supposed to be traveling in, quite frankly. We met with the state and, we talked about a number of measures. Could we pull the stop bars back further? There were some concerns with the gas station operations and how their access worked. We looked at, could you tighten up some of the lanes? There really wasn't an appetite for that because they wanted to maintain certain lane widths and shoulder widths. So really we were at a kind of conundrum where there was no solution, if you will. But the applicant, Blue Water, did reach out to the landowner on the southeast corner there. And if we slide forward one more, they've reached an agreement where they are going to purchase that parcel of land that's shaded in blue. And what that allows is that we are able to increase the receiving width so that there's a larger area to turn into, almost double what's there today. And then we also are able to soften that corner. So instead of having a smaller radii that requires the trucks to make that hard jackknife move from the wrong lane, you can see now even the WB67 is able to make that right-hand turn in their lane even if the left-hand lane on Hartford Avenue is slid forward to where it wants to be, which is, you know, in line with the other lanes. So it's an important measure. Quite frankly, it's a big improvement in terms of operations and maneuverability. And it's something that, you know, the state has no ability to implement now because they don't have the land and there's no, you know, state or local project in place to put this in, you know, to have it built. So, you know, we see this as a big improvement. And even beyond where the pavement would be, you can see this additional blue area where we've looked and designed where the mast arm would go, where the pedestrian push buttons would go. So everything that's getting displaced out of the right of way today would have a place to go to so that this could get built. And we see this as a, you know, not only a benefit to this project, but really a benefit to the operations of the intersection as a whole. And again, there's absent that this being done in conjunction with the warehouse project, this isn't going to get fixed. So that's really, you know, our responses in a nutshell to the MDM comments. You know, a lot of the minor comments in the traffic study, you know, we addressed, and it really just bared out that the conclusions of the initial study remain unchanged. But I think that really the major you know, advancement in the project, if you will, since we were last before you, is that we have secured that land, and we are committed to working with DOT to make that change, and then in conjunction with it also optimize that timing so this light works as well as it can. That's really all I have for tonight.
Thank you.
Did you look at the southbound travel traffic turning onto Hartford Ave?
From South Main?
Yeah, from South Main.
Yeah, that movement with the 20-foot setback worked better than the northbound. I'm not sure if we ran it, but it'll certainly, we were able to make that work today with this, with the setback stop bar. So certainly with this widening, it should work better than it does now.
Well, I'm just wondering whether it's going to enable the state to move that stop line up.
Yeah, it's something we can certainly investigate with them as this moves to the state permitting process.
Yeah, I'm sure the state, I mean, we have to understand that this is a state road and they're gonna do what they see fit anyways, but I'm sure you'll be working closely with them.
No, we have a response from this, from MDM. I kind of outlined it. They're more or less in agreement, except for that condition once they identify a tenant.
And I think we're all agreeable to that once you get a proposed tenant.
If it significantly varies from what we've proposed as part of the basis of this application, absolutely.
So there's like two tiers of conditions. First, they say, hey, we found a tenant, hooray, I guess. And here's what it is, and here's what their projections are. How do they match up with this?
With your proposal.
If it's within reason, okay, go ahead. Then when they're 85% filled, we do this noise and the traffic monitoring. See if they're doing what they said they were
doing. You done, Bill? I'm just gonna.
Yeah,
take some
no, I was
questions
just
from the
gonna say,
audience,
I mean, I appreciate them being agreeable with, more than a few conditions we're outlining within the decision. And I think you've shown an effort to try to appease the town as best you can.
Okay, thank you.
Following up on what Jack just said, so specific to comment 8 and specifically the response, comment 8, MDM did a really good job of itemizing and being specific about being at approval for evaluate, reassess all aspects from stormwater to noise, traffic, etc. But they also listed here that typically any increase more than 10% of projected levels is an appropriate basis or rubric or threshold for revisiting potential mitigation actions. So they've come back and said, they suggested 25%. Why would you allow such a? And they're also specifying only peak hours. Why would you limit it to peak hours and then also raise it to 25%?
Gonna have an answer right here for you.
Yeah, we did look at that. And I think if we were doing, 1.4 million square feet, then, 10% might be a reasonable threshold. Our study shows that our peak generation is 35 trips. So if you went with a 10% threshold, that's 3 trips. Most of the traffic's coming from multiple directions. So that would mean that basically if we're off by 1 car in a given hour, we should redo the whole study. 1 car for any particular movement falls within what we would call rounding error. Quite frankly, 25%, 2 cars, 3 cars falls within rounding error, but we did want to have a threshold that we were tied to, but 10% would basically mean if we said that 9 cars were making a left and it ended up being 10, that we'd have to, redo the whole study over 1 vehicle. It's just the 10% I think makes sense if you're doing a large distribution type facility where you have, 1 million square feet and 10% might be, 100 trips. But with us, 10% would be 3 trips. And when you break it all up into multiple ways they get and come and go, we'd be basically redoing the study because we're off by 1 car in an hour.
Is that document from MDM that you're,
No, this is is it Chappelle or Chap?
Chapel, yeah.
Chappelle, this Chappelle. That's tremendous.
but that response you read, I'm looking at it now, is from MDM. That's our,
Right, they did it, and then, but,
they came back with 25.
I could tell you, and you haven't seen this yet, but because again, I got it at 5 of 6. It says this is from MDM based on, and they go through this whole monitoring after 6 months and how to do it, et cetera, et cetera. It does say peak hours. That's our consultant. And it said, should the increases in traffic associated with the project result in significantly more traffic during peak periods greater than 25%. Now, I don't know if they changed their minds. I can get clarification.
So the reason I ask about this is he's very specific about general traffic in the area. But this awkward parcel forces Blue, it really limits Blue Water's design. So if you increase traffic, and that includes trucks, you now have these trucks doing this ring around neighbors, people's lives, So that's very important, that number, because if you're increasing trucks and, you may be doing this at, early hours, later hours, that affects residents that surround that property.
I'd like to talk to MDM about that. I don't know why it changed.
I think we should be conscious of how those two things voice, the design of this property and the traffic, how they're all interrelated.
They're associated.
The consequences.
I can ask Dan from MDM tomorrow why he changed.
Why it changed to 25?
Well, it's
But
10%
considering,
and considering that.
Yeah. Bill, anything?
No, I mean, the question needs to be asked, but, I think his explanation is probably going to be similar to the one the applicant just gave us.
Yes.
The impacts are going to be, the percentage change is going to be minor, especially in off-peak hours. And, like he said, 1 vehicle could, cause mitigation.
Any other questions? Good.
Just a comment. The original projected numbers, 352 car and truck trips a day. That's 128,480. Just to put some perspective on the numbers, because all this time, it's kind of like how copiers are sold. It's only gonna cost you a penny. Sometimes you have to look at a little bigger picture. And if with the 25% projection, that if that were to be granted to the applicant, that would bump up total trips to about 440 a day, car and truck trips. or 160,600 yearly trips. So the increase alone to 25% would give them roughly 30,000 additional car and truck trips per year. Just to give it a little wider perspective on what the total impact is, not just a day or a particular set of hours.
Thank you. I mean, we have these peer reviews done by, independent, for us. And we get them done to help you guys. And we're just gonna have to address that 25% and then see what the reason is and go from there.
Yeah,
Right, that's about all we can do.
and I honestly don't know the reason. And I'll find out.
There was one more question. You have your hand up there, man?
Members are moving into the area. Perhaps if they moved into the area, they might have a different perspective.
Well,
I have a question on traffic study, where they were saying about Bates Street. Traffic coming off Cape Road onto Bates Street, getting some, 5 an hour or something. The other day, I was trying to pull off of Edward Road onto Bates Street. I wanted to make a left turn. There were 5 cars. This was at 3:15 in the afternoon. 5 cars were coming off Cape Road, going past Edward Road, but then there was also the traffic coming around the corner. So I'm now sitting there and it's a minimal traffic time. So I wasn't even at peak hours. At 8 o'clock in the morning, if I'm leaving my house and I get onto Cape Road and I'm heading towards that intersection, I'm usually stopped at Mr. Gasco's gas station, waiting to get up through the lights. And but that is at 8 o'clock in the morning, but they have to sit 50 and let the lights cycle times. Now I'm looking at this map here, which you very nicely made it so that it is very nice for that you would the road. Take a right to head out to 495. What about if the trucks are coming up Hartford Avenue East and wanting to pull onto Cape Road? Not gonna work.
so, well, I mean,
The fire trucks wouldn't be able to do that. That's kind of scary.
thank you. Any other questions? It's like not gonna take a vote.
I prefer you not to.
I think what we need to do, Jack, is you need to outline I'd like to see a decision with all the conditions in it. To make sure when we go over any conditions that the applicant's agreeable to them. And I'd also like this, obviously, this 25% question answered. We can.
I was gonna say, no one's seen this traffic response except me, I guess. No, I haven't seen it. Oh, good. And so now, everybody has to digest it. It's not very long. And then this whole 10 versus 25, I'm curious. I want to hear the answer. And maybe thinking out loud, maybe there's some tiered system we could do. We'll see. But I can draft something.
You're gonna draft a decision.
I think you just, regarding the traffic, you just indicated, and this is just from my own knowledge, how many trips a day? How many vehicles a day pass through that intersection?
Through coming into the site?
Cape Road and Hartford Ave.
Oh, yeah, I don't know if we
Yeah.
ever did a daily count there.
It's between 15 and 17,000.
I know we
Okay.
did counts on Cape, I'm not sure we did them in Hartford.
15 and 17,000 a day. And how many are you proposing to add to that
We add,
a day?
a day, about 114 cars enter, 114 cars exit, and then 62 trucks enter and 62 trucks exit on the course of a day. And that's over the entire,
24 hours.
period, correct?
6.
Yes.
Go ahead.
So For instance, when I'm coming from Home Depot and I'm traveling down Hartford and I want to take a left onto Cape Road, there's no left-hand turn signal. You're just kind of hanging out there in the middle of the road. What if one of those big trucks is trying to come around and do their right turn and I'm trying to take a left?
That's why they're gonna do some adjusting to that intersection, which is gonna make it better for probably everybody traveling in that intersection. Yes, sir.
I'd also like to point out that the Dale warehouse is looking at 1,100 vehicle trips per day through that intersection. Plus, there will be some, trips from the new warehouse that's being built at the bottom of Depot Street in Bellingham.
Right, I mean, we can't go by what other towns are doing right now, 'cause that's not approved, it might not even happen.
No, I completely understand that. You took just saying that that's the volume, that's the.
Right.
Or, again, a larger perspective, volume that's actually going to be going through that intersection.
Sean, did
Thank
you
you.
take that into
We
consideration?
did. So when we do our studies, what we do is we project out 7 years. That's the state guideline. And we incorporate background growth, which would account for any trips associated with something, for instance, in Bellingham or another surrounding community. But we also, if it's close enough, and this Hopedale one was, we take those trips explicitly. So the traffic they projected has already been included in our model as part of the future condition.
Thank you.
So I'd like to go back to the beginning of the meeting when Water updated us on, or they, on questions to, follow-up questions to the zoning questions at the last meeting. So we did say that we did modify the stormwater riffraff area on the western side. So will the updated plans be submitted to the board, and then is the board going to have your peer reviewer review them to make sure that whatever changes they made will be.
I think they're gonna have, Jeff Walsh will look at them plans, but basically they actually benefited everything. They pulled everything out of the buffer zone. The 100-foot buffer zone for conservation issues. But yes, Jeff Walsh will look at them.
Right, because the
It's changed.
Yeah, they've changed, no matter what, they have to be looked at.
Okay.
You have a hand up. Oh, it's.
Go ahead, Carl.
Carl Hummel, 15 Misco Road, also Conservation Commission. Is there any issue with the existing maintenance and operation plan that has been submitted? The Conservation Commission will be interested in looking parts of that, and I wanted to see whether the planning board has given an official approval of what's been submitted by Blue Water.
They won't, Carl, they won't give an official until they vote, and if they vote. That will be by the vote an approval of the OMM plan. Our peer reviewer has looked at it and had no comment.
Okay, so
There is a scheduled maintenance plan in place.
Yes.
yes. And the Conservation Commission will be interested in parts of that plan dealing with the underground filters and after a major storm event, what walk around maintenance is going to be. So I'd appreciate it if we could get a copy of what Blue Water has submitted to the planning board, especially if the planning board doesn't have any outstanding issues with it. And then we would be able to review that at our meeting this Thursday.
I'm not sure Jeff Walsh has completed his entire review of the new plan.
Okay.
As soon as our engineer, finishes his review of the stormwater, I'm sure we'd be more than happy to get you a copy of that.
Okay,
Carl,
so if it's still
we're
in-
talking about two different things here. We're talking about this plans and the change in the drainage system, albeit very minute. And we're talking about the O&M plan itself. O&M plan Graves has looked at. They haven't seen this change in drainage yet.
With the schedule, the maintenance plan is gonna be the same maintenance plan that you would use, whether it's 100 feet out of the buffer zone or,
Right.
you know what I mean? So
Yes.
I think that has already been in place, and I would imagine that the Conservation Commission already has that.
The Concom has it, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Would have been. I can resubmit it, Carl, so you have it on the top of your desk.
Okay.
And then it looks like Greg Burnett from Dupree is on. I know that the plans were resubmitted to Graves to review the minor change. And he did confirm receipt, so I don't know if he's complete with his review yet, but
I talked to him Friday, he did not.
so in progress.
Try to follow up with him. Maybe we can try to follow up with Jeff this week.
So I got
Yes.
some loose ends to tie up.
Okay.
Motion continue.
And then we'll get this continued. The next meeting, you'll have this decision drafted that we can all,
I will tie up the loose ends. Everything will be on the website. So everyone can see it. Certainly email me if you need anything, please. And I will draft a decision. Yes. By the 19th. Is that the next meeting?
we ought to, is that gonna be something?
I want to make sure Bill is available though, because otherwise you won't have a quorum.
I will be there with bells on. I'm coming to you live. It is now 1:05 a.m. in Lake Como, Italy. So
Lucky you.
I will be I will still be in Italy at the next one, but I will be on the meeting.
Thanks, Bill. Go to
All right,
bed.
guys.
Go to bed.
Let's get a motion to continue.
Motion
here.
continue.
We got locked.
Hold on, so one second. Yeah. You're gonna drop a decision that's gonna be ready for everybody to look at. Do we want our attorney looking at it? Do we want anybody looking at it? Are you good, comfortable with what we got going on so they can look at it?
I think I can handle that.
I know you can handle it, but I mean, are you comfortable with this?
Let me write it.
Keep everybody, I wanna keep everybody
I
happy.
understand what you're saying.
The residents.
No. Let's do this. Let me draft it. I obviously will share it with the applicant. I'll share it with you guys.
Okay.
If you think you need the attorney, our attorney, that's fine. There's no ego here. I'm just,
I don't need it. I'm not second guessing you.
yeah, I know that. Don't worry about it.
All right.
All right, motion to continue the public hearing for 23 Cape Road, June 19th, 6 PM.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Okay.
Jay, you can ask as many questions as you want.
All right, thank you, guys.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, Jay, you're just because you can't vote, you're not excluded.
Gotta continue, gotta make a motion to, continue the public hearing for 147 Hartford Ave.
Yep, we're still waiting on their traffic report. He was supposed to have it to me on Friday. Harry emailed me today, still doesn't have it.
All right.
And Jay can vote on that.
Okay, yeah.
So did we receive an email or a letter from,
Yeah.
him,
Yeah.
Jack?
Yep. Harry emailed Jack today. I'll make a motion.
I can make a motion to continue the hearing for 147 Hartford Ave.
Eric Kearns, 153 Hartford Ave.
Yep.
Is it unusual for the giant gas tank containers to be present at the site currently?
Yeah, I saw them there. I mean, it's,
Seems like a foregone conclusion, but you haven't voted it. I just want to.
well, they can store them there because there's nothing in them, but if this doesn't get approved, then they can go somewhere else, right, Jack?
Yeah, there's nothing illegal about storing it. It's his property.
Yeah.
But just the proximity to the road.
It is a little brazen, maybe.
I know, if they get you're definitely a little ahead of the game, but, I mean, we have to go through all our motions before he's approved to do
I
anything.
want to know if it's safe, where they're located on the side of the road. Is there, I don't know if it has to be 10 feet, 50 feet.
Richmond Road.
Yeah, they seem to be far enough in there. Everything looks pretty good there. I can see the road.
But that's what he's going to
Gas station.
undertake now.
The tanks are there.
We're not discussing the gas station.
Yeah, we are.
Man, they can clear their land, they can do it, but I mean, if
There's
nothing,
nothing
if
illegal.
we don't approve it.
There's nothing illegal to clearing land, cutting trees, it's his property.
Yeah.
He may not be able to build a gas station. I
No,
don't know.
no. I would think that he wouldn't go much farther than he is. He had probably ordered those tanks so long ago that he probably thought he was gonna be further along, but we've been asking for peer reviews and stuff, and it delayed the process, so. Thank you. So
I'll make a motion to continue the public hearing for 147 Hartford Avenue East to the June 19.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Right.
You got a lot release.
Take care. So we got a lot release here for,
Thank you.
now, Rawson Farm Drive and Tyler Road, but has anybody looked at this?
Jeff,
I have been up there.
Okay, it's all paved?
and he sent, it's got binder on it.
Find it.
As long as it's got
That's
binder.
the agreement.
Yeah, that was the agreement, yeah.
And he okayed it, the email was sent to you today.
Oh, okay, I might have missed it.
Yes.
I drove up there.
And for Jay, I don't know a lot about this. This is well before me, but, maybe you can explain.
So, Rawson Farm Road, this is the Missile Springs. Thank you. They wanted us to release, at one point, they wanted us to release, I think it was like maybe 5 or 8 lots or whatever. But the road wasn't even paved, with the drainage was just dirt. So we said, no, you have to come back in as you get so far up, okay, you got 3 or 4 lots there, we'll release them as the pavement's done. So now that's why he's coming back in front of us for, is it
5 lots, is it?
Oh, one, okay.
2 on Rawson.
14, 15, 21A, 22A, 23, and 39.
Okay.
So Jay, typically our highway superintendent goes up there, but we don't have one. So
That one is
Jeff,
Rawson.
it said
When
it's
you get ready.
acceptable. Jeff, our engineer.
Or is it five?
It just says lots number.
At some point, he'll get to the point where he doesn't have a lot of lots left,
He had looked
and
at
that's
two
our
roads.
surety. We don't let him
He
go
said
and
Rawson Farm and
get
Tyler Road.
building permits until he completely finishes
They're
the
not
road
separated.
at the end.
Yeah, Jack, just.
They had
just,
2 different
so
roads.
you're aware, even for a binder, I require an inspection by Jeff. We don't send the highway surveyor
Oh,
up.
you don't? Okay.
No, we send Jeff Walsh to do our inspections.
All right, I didn't.
I
know.
think even Jeff goes out when they're paving. Jeff, I think, is out there making sure the
Does.
depth is the right way. Yeah.
Yeah, to make sure they're not cheating us.
Yeah.
Got it.
And that's it
No,
there.
you know what? Oh, it might be right here. I'm sorry. So, okay, so Rawson, yeah, right here. Okay, all right. Okay, he just has them all numbered here, but that's fine. Yeah.
Okay.
So you want to make a,
I'll make a motion to release 5 lots. 2 on Rawson Farm, lot 14 and 21A, and 3 on Tyler, lot 22A, lot 23, and lot 39.
Second.
all in favor?
Hello,
Oh,
Hello?
Sorry. Oh, right.
We got a hand up.
I've had my hand raised, but I don't think you noticed. I'm here, so it's actually 6 lots, and all 6 lots are on the Form H.
Okay, yeah, but on the Form H, Fred, it just said lots numbered. But it didn't say what roads they were on, so that's why I was a little confused going off the email.
Okay, it's, yeah, they're all, there's 3 lots on Rawson Farm,
Okay, so
It's
14, 21A, and what's the other one?
15,
Okay.
and that is on the Form H that I emailed.
Yes, I see it. Okay, so let's
Yep.
do this again here.
I'll make a motion to approve the lots, 6 lots, 3 on Rawson, lot 15, lot 14, and lot 21A, and 3 on Tyler, lot 22A, lot 23, and lot 39.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thanks for the correction, Fred.
All right, thank you.
All right.
Hope all is well.
Yeah, doing very well right now.
Good to hear, buddy. Good to hear.
Right here, Fred.
Thank you.
All
Do
right,
we
so
have a
we'll get-
second?
We already have a second.
Yeah, you wanna, all in favor, Bill?
There you go.
Go to bed. Yeah. Bill doesn't really have to sign this because we got enough people here.
No, you
Right.
need three, that's all.
You only need three, yeah.
It's today's the fifth.
Right.
Will I be able to pick that up tomorrow at the office?
Yes, you can. I'll be there.
All right, thanks, Gail.
Hey, Fred,
Hi, Fred, thank you.
Thanks.
The
Good
other
night.
thing
Damon, don't forget to sign that.
I did.
Both places? Okay.
the only other thing I wanted to mention, I think you all saw the email. I've applied for that grant, they're gonna do a diagnostic of the bylaws, and then they're gonna help us bring them up to this century. It's going to be, a heavy task. But I think if we apply the time and, we're gonna, what I'd like to do, and we can discuss it further at the next, when I return, but I'd like to, build a committee, bylaw review committee, reporting to the board. So we can get this, achieved as quick as possible.
Sounds good.
Very good.
All right. It's late here, Bill. We gotta go home and go to bed, so.
All right, guys, I am checking out.
Now you won't be able to sleep because you're all wound up.
No.
All right, thank you. Motion to adjourn?
Damon, thanks for taking
Second.
care of the meeting.
All right.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, guys,
Thank
very
you.
much. Good night. Thank you, Jay.
Good night, everyone.
One down, Jay.